A fire rips through the Sodder family home, trapping 5 of their kids inside. But when the flames finally die down, there's nothing. No bodies, no bones, no trace they were ever there. It doesn't even make sense. Fires don't just erase people. And yet, in this case, it somehow did. Or at least, that's what someone wanted everyone to believe. Because the more you look into this case, the stranger it gets. The vanishing evidence, the mysterious phone calls, a cryptic photograph that arrived decades later. Was it a tragedy, or something far more sinister?
This isn't just a story about a tragic fire, it's a story about 5 missing children, impossible clues, and a series of events so suspicious. They completely defy logic. Every piece of evidence seemed to raise more questions than answers.
It was Christmas Eve, 1945. The Sodder family was celebrating. George and Jenny were Italian immigrants. They were enjoying the holiday with 9 out of their 10 children. And it should have been a normal, joyful night, but something felt off. The kids went to bed early, which wasn't like them. At 12:30 a.m., Jenny was woken up by the phone ringing. A woman's voice, someone she didn't recognize, was on the other end. In the background, there was laughter and clinking glasses, something like a party. The woman asked for someone Jenny has never heard of. When Jenny told her she had the wrong number, the woman let out a weird, eerie laugh before hanging up.
As weird as that was, things got even more strange. When Jenny put the phone down, she noticed something unsettling. The downstairs lights were still on, the front door was unlocked, and even the curtains which the kids always closed were wide open. Not thinking much of it, she locked up and went back to bed. But less than an hour later, she woke up again. This time to a loud thump on the roof, followed by a rolling sound, almost like something had been thrown up there. But minutes later, she smelled smoke.
They both panicked because the flames were spreading fast. George and Jenny grabbed their youngest, Sylvia, and ran to wake the other kids. 4 of them made it outside. But the other 5 children, Maurice, Martha, Louis, Jenny, and Betty, ages 5 to 14, were still stuck upstairs.
Now this is where things get really bizarre. George ran to grab his ladder to climb to their window, but it was gone. Not misplaced, but completely gone. That ladder was always kept in the same spot every day, but that night, it just vanished. George desperately tried to start his truck to drive up and use it as a lift. Not one, but both of his trucks, which had worked fine the day before, refused to start. Jenny ran to call for help, but the phone lines were dead. The fire department that was just 2 miles away wouldn't arrive for 7 hours. By the time they got there, the house was nothing but ashes, and there were no remains of the children, no bones, no sign of them at all.
So here's the problem with the official explanation. Authorities said the fire burned so hot it completely incinerated the children's bodies. But that's not how fire works. Even at 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit, bones don't just turn to dust. And yet, at the Sodder home there was no evidence of burnt bodies. What was even stranger is that some of their household appliances survived the fire. But somehow 5 of their children's bodies left no trace at all.
But the weirdness doesn't stop there. A bus driver reported seeing balls of fire being thrown onto the Sodder house that night. A neighbor saw a man stealing parts from their fuse box before the fire started. And when Jenny burned animal bones in her own oven to test the theory, they didn't disintegrate. So how did her children's bones just vanish?
Then the biggest twist of all, 22 years later, Jenny Sodder received an unmarked letter in the mail with a photograph of a young man. On the back of the photo was a written message that said,
Louis Sodder, I love my brother Frankie, he little boys. A 90132.
The Sodders were convinced this was their missing son who was now an adult. But where had he been all these years? And who sent the letter?
Over the years, witnesses claimed to have seen the Sodder children alive. A woman in St. Louis said she saw them in a convent, and a bartender overheard 2 men talking about setting the house on fire. But no solid proof was ever found. The mystery continued to grow, but no answers ever came.
George Sodder spent the rest of his life searching for his children. He put up billboards all over the country, offered a $5,000 reward for any answers, and even hired private investigators. He never gave up until he passed away in 1969, and Jenny in 1989, without ever knowing what really happened to their kids.
To this day, no bodies have been found and no one has ever been charged. The case is as open-ended as it was in 1945. The Sodder home is gone, and if the children were alive they would be in their 80s or 90s by now. But the question remains, was it an elaborate kidnapping or a cover-up that spiraled out of control? A secret the Sodders were never meant to uncover, or maybe something even darker. What do you think happened?